Hello everyone, welcome to the 12th session of Internet Fundamentals and Web Tools. So, this is our agenda today. So, we have so far discussed about World Wide Web. So, the computer networking is over, then we started with World Wide Web. So, what is WWW and what are the differences between World Wide Web and the Internet, like which Internet is a physical component and World Wide Web is a web is more to do with the communication exchanging between the client and server, or among computers we can exchange the data using web. And what a client server architecture we have seen, and also we have seen something about web terminology, like what is a client, what is server, we have seen what is web server, what is web client we have seen. And in web terminology we have seen about what is a web page. So, web page is a document in the web. So, anything that we open using web browser is a web page. And what is a web browser? So, web browser is a web client. So, it can send the request to web server and it can receive the response, interpret it and present it in a specific manner to the user. Presenting means showing it to the user. So, this web browser is very important thing to view any information in the web world, and this is the web browser which makes our computer or the laptop a web client. So, this web browser is a client and this web browser is a web client process, and which will make the computer a web client computer. Okay. And hyperlinks are the links to navigate between the web pages. So, these hyperlinks are used to go to another website or go to another web page or another location in the same web page. So, these are the hyperlinks. These hyperlinks can be text, image or video or animated things. So, these are the power of hyperlinks is to navigate from one place to another place, and as soon as we click the hyperlink, it will present the new data. It will try to fetch the new data from a new server. It can be a new server, and from that server it will fetch particular information and will show it to us. And hypertext. So, this is the hypertext. Hypertext is a non-linear text which will be in the which will be used in the HTML pages, which is hypertext markup language. So, what is HTML? We have seen the introduction about HTML. There are some keywords or the tags or the codes to represent different entities or the different objects in the web page. Suppose an image will have a different code. So, we will say image and we will give the image location, so that image will be present in the web page, right. So, HTML document is usually a text document, but it will contain images and videos, everything, by using the hyperlinks or the relative paths. So, we will give one image tag and we will give the path of the image, so that image will be present in the browser, but HTML document is a plain text document. Okay. And we have seen what is a HTTP. So, in our previous session we have seen about HTTP, which is hypertext transfer protocol, which is a standard agreement between the client and the server. So, client will ask some data in HTTP protocols format, and the server will send the response in the HTTP specific format, which is called HTTP request and response. Request can be get, put, post or delete, which is getting the information or the retrieving the information or updating the information or creating the information, and also the responses will be, and also deleting the information. Responses will be the server responses will be 200 created, 200 OK or 201 created or unauthorized or updated. So, all these things are server responses, right. And what is a home page also we have seen. So, what is a home page? Home page is a main page which will be connecting all the other pages in a website. So, every website will usually be having a home page which will navigate us across the website. So, for example, yahoo.com we have seen. Yahoo.com will have a home page. So, as soon as we click www.yahoo.com, then it will present as a page which will show all the links to Yahoo Mail, Yahoo News, Yahoo Cricket, Yahoo Sports, Entertainment, movies. So, all these things will combinedly together and put in a home page. So, all the services they are advertising or they are showing it in one place, which is the home page, right. And home page will have the links to all the pages. So, you can navigate through them and come back to the home page again if you want to navigate back. and for example, mail will have a link from home page, and as soon as you click mail, then it will require a authentication or password. Or if you go to any free any other website like Yahoo Cricket, that does not need any authentication, so it will not ask for any password or username. And it is also used, this authentication is also used to customize the home page or customize the environment, or suppose Yahoo is giving a blue background, so we want a green background, then we can customize it by using the customization of it by the logging into the yahoo.com. Okay. And we have also seen about DNS servers. So we saw what is a domain name. So domain name is a name given to an IP address, and how to register the domain name, like godaddy.com. We can go to register a particular domain name if it is freely available. So there will be a charge relevant to that domain name, and if you can pay that charge if you can pay that charge, then it will be like per month this month, or per year this month. There will be lot of offers, discounts, lot of things. But usually if the domain if you choose a long domain name, it will be very cheap, and nobody will be using it like A B C D E F G until Z we use. So that kind of domain name nobody will be using, so we are free to use that. So as soon as we register the domain name with the server, then we will be able to use that domain, we will be able to associate the domain name with an IP address. So this domain name will be like a hierarchy. Suppose we saw one example called aponline.gov.in. So this, in this format, in is the top level domain name, and gov is a node under in, and AP online is another node under gov. So like that, under in there can be another name called co, and there will be another name under co called Yahoo, for the domain name yahoo.co.in. So there it will be like a hierarchy. And we saw whatever the domain names, the regular domain names, regular top level domain names that we have seen, like for an educational institution it will be edu, for a commercial purpose if you are using, then it will be com, and for a different purposes, different domain names will be there. And for different countries also, we can represent the domain name with a country name, country code, like IN for India, US for Australia, and CA for Canada. Suppose if you go to yahoo.co.ca, it will show the Canada information, because it is the domain name is Canadian domain. And we also saw how the domain name servers will be communicating each other to find a particular domain name, or to find a particular IP address for a website. So we will see more about how the domain name server is working, and how the communication is happening between how the internet IP address is being fetched from this DNS hierarchy, or DNS servers distributed system, right. So now we are going to see how the DNS is working, and also about uniform resource locators or URLs. So we will see the URL, what is URL and its structure, and what is meant by each component of the URL, and then what kinds of what kinds of URLs we will be using. So those things we will be seeing in this session. Okay. So this is what we have seen in the previous session. So we want to find a particular website address. So from laptop we have given that particular IP address. What the browser will do is, browser will contact one DNS server. So if the IP address is there in the DNS server, the DNS server will provide the IP address. If the IP address is not present in the DNS server, it will contact another DNS server and will fetch that IP address. So this hierarchy will be keep on going. So once the IP address is found in any particular DNS server, then it will return back, and the DNS server which we contacted locally will cache that IP address, and then forward the IP address back to the web client or browser or the laptop. So again, if there is any other again in the same region, if one more request comes for that particular website address, then it will not go for another DNS server. It will have the information in its own cache, and will send the response back to the web client, and with that IP address it will directly contact the computer or the web server. The laptop will directly contact the web server, and this is how the DNS will be working. DNS translates the domain name into IP address automatically. when we type www.rediff.com into a browser, it asks the local DNS server for its IP address. When the local DNS does not find the IP address of the requested domain name, it forwards the request to the root DNS server and again inquires about the IP address of it. So, root DNS server replies with delegation that I do not know the IP address of www.rediff.com, but I know the IP address of com DNS server. Okay. And the local DNS server then asks the com DNS server the same question, and the com DNS server replies the same that does not know the IP address of www.rediff.com, but knows the IP address of rediff.com. Okay. Then the local DNS server asks rediff.com DNS server the same question. Then rediff.com DNS server replies with the IP address of www.rediff.com. Now the local DNS server sends the IP address of www.rediff.com to the computer that sends the request. Okay, this is the entire working. So we will see these things one by one. Okay, DNS server translates the domain name into IP address automatically. That means that is the main functionality of the DNS server. So managing the domain name and also managing the domain names and IP addresses association and translating the domain name into IP address. So this is the main functionality of the DNS server, right. So for example, here we wanted to go to a website called rediff.com, www.rediff.com. This is what we have entered in the web browser. Then it asks the local DNS server for its IP address. So for every computer there is a DNS server associated with it in the internet. So every computer or every DNS server will have different DNS servers connected to it, right. So every computer in the internet will be having a DNS server associated with it, or every network basically. So as soon as we enter www.rediff.com, what it will do is it will go to the local DNS server, but because that is the only thing we know. So whatever the name that we got, whatever the domain name that we give, it knows only the DNS server. So it will go to the DNS server and ask for what is the IP address of this particular name, because computer did not know about the name. So if you say ABCDE, it will take this ABCDE and will go to the DNS server and ask. So like that www.rediff.com, it took it and sent it to the DNS server which is locally available. When the local DNS server does not find the IP address of the requested domain, it forwards the request to root DNS server and again inquires about the IP address of it. So this www.rediff.com local DNS server does not know. So what it will do, it will ask another DNS server, it will ask the higher level DNS server about this about the website that we asked for, or about the domain name that we asked for. Like this it will go on till it reaches the root DNS server. So once it reaches the root DNS server, what will happen is the root DNS server then replies with the delegation that I do not know the IP address of rediff.com, but IP address of www.rediff.com, but I know the IP address of com DNS server. So in most of the times we will not it will not return back with the IP address immediately. So what it will do is it will first try to translate it tries to translate the extension of the domain name. So here the full name is www.rediff.com. In that it may reply saying that I don't know this full length of this this full domain name, but I know the extension com domain address or com DNS address. So what it will do, so in the hierarchy we reached to the top level, and from root again we came back. So we saw it knows the IP address of com DNS server. So we branched it out. So we went to another DNS server. So it returns back the IP address of com DNS server. So then what will happen, again the local DNS server asks the com DNS server the same question, like I want to know the IP address of www.rediff.com, but I asked the root DNS server, he said you are the person who knows it, so please help me with the please help me finding this address. So root DNS server only com DNS server మాత్రమే తెలుసు నాకు, ఈ full length rediff.com నాకు తెలియదు అని చెప్పేసి com దగ్గరికి పంపించింది. సో com again we will go to the com DNS server and ask the same question. So what will happen, this com DNS server replies the same that it does not know the IP address of www.rediff.com, but knows the IP address of rediff.com. So ఈ రూట్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్ కామ్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్ ఐపీ ఇచ్చింది. దెన్ కామ్ డిఎన్ఎస్ మళ్ళీ ఈ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ పట్టుకొని కామ్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళాం. సో కామ్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్ ఏం చేస్తుంది, ఐ డోంట్ నో ద ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఆఫ్ www.rediff.com, అంటే నాకు కూడా ఈ డొమైన్ నేమ్స్ ఈ డొమైన్ నేమ్ తెలీదు, బట్ ఐ నో ద ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఆఫ్ అనదర్ డొమైన్ నేమ్ విచ్ ఈస్ rediff.com. సో అగైన్ ఈ అడ్రస్ తెలిసిన ఇంకొక డొమైన్ నేమ్ సర్వర్ అడ్రస్, ఇంకొక డొమైన్ నేమ్ సర్వర్ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ మనకు వచ్చింది. అంటే ఫస్ట్ లోకల్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళాం, అక్కడ లోకల్ దొరకపోతే మళ్ళీ పైకి వెళ్ళాం, ఇంకా అలా రూట్ సర్వర్ దగ్గర రూట్ డొమైన్ నేమ్ సర్వర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళాం. సో రూట్ డొమైన్ నేమ్ సర్వర్ అగైన్ ఇట్ సెండ్ అస్ ద ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఆఫ్ కామ్ డొమైన్ నేమ్ సర్వర్. సో ఈ కామ్ డొమైన్ నేమ్ సర్వర్ ఏం చేసింది, ఇట్ అగైన్ సెండ్ అస్ ద డొమైన్ డిఎన్ఎస్ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఆఫ్ rediff.com instead of www.rediff.com. So again what we will do, again we will ask the rediff.com DNS server the same question. So what is the IP address of www.rediff.com? So then rediff.com DNS server replies the IP address of www.rediff.com. So finally, after so many iterations, we went to the local DNS, and local DNS went to the root DNS, then root DNS gave the IP address of com, then we went to the com, and then local DNS went to the rediff.com, and then rediff.com gave the actual IP address of www.rediff.com. Now after all this processing in the DNS server, the local DNS server, then it will send that to the computer, it sends the request. So ఈ ప్రాసెసింగ్ అంతా ఈ లోకల్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్ చూసుకొని, అంటే ఈ రిక్వెస్ట్ లోకల్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వరు రూట్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్తో మాట్లాడింది, దెన్ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ రాగానే కామ్ డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్తో మాట్లాడింది, దెన్ rediff.com డిఎన్ఎస్ సర్వర్తో మాట్లాడింది. సో ఈ అన్నిటితో కమ్యూనికేషన్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత ఇట్ ఫైనల్లీ సెంట్ ద ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఆఫ్ ద www.rediff.com టు ద కంప్యూటర్, ఇట్ సెండ్స్ ద రిక్వెస్ట్. సో వాట్ ఎవర్ ద browser that we asked for, then to that browser now the IP address is available. So the browser will be able to contact that particular domain name. So the local DNS server, what it will do is it will cache the IP address of this www.rediff.com domain. So అది ఈ IP అడ్రస్ని క్యాష్ చేసుకొని, అంటే ఈ IP అడ్రస్ని మెమరీలో ఉంచుకుంటుంది. మళ్ళీ ఇంకేదైనా రిక్వెస్ట్ ఇదే విధంగా వస్తే అది మళ్ళీ ఈ రౌటింగ్ అంతా లేకుండా డైరెక్ట్గా ఆ డొమైన్ నేమ్ అడ్రస్ ఆర్ ద IP అడ్రస్ని మన కంప్యూటర్కి ఇచ్చేస్తుంది. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద ఫంక్షనాలిటీ ఆఫ్ DNS. Okay, that is the functionality of DNS, right? Now we will go to the next topic called URLs, Uniform Resource Locators. So this URLs, whatever we have discussed is URL అంటే ఇది ఒక రిసోర్స్ని లొకేట్ చేసే ఒక ఐడి లాంటిది అని మనం ఇదివరకు చెప్పుకున్నాం. సో విల్ సీ మోర్ అబౌట్ దిస్ URLs in this topic. Okay, the IP address of the domain name the IP address and the domain name each identify a particular computer on the internet. However, they do not indicate when a web page HTML document resides on that computer. So to identify web page's exact location, the web browser rely on URL or Uniform Resource Locator. Okay, so how do we identify a particular computer in the internet is by using IP address. So initially when we are discussing computer networks, we thought IP address is the one which will identify uniquely a computer, and then we came to the domain name. So IP address is all numbers, so it is very difficult to manage those things, so we came up with domain name. Then we know one computer in the internet, right? So how do we identify particular file? So we know the computer, but what are the files available and how to access the files in that? How there will be hundreds and thousands of files which are organized in a separate way, right? So how to access all those files is by using URLs. However, they do not indicate whether a web page HTML document resides inside that computer. That means a HTML document is there in the computer, or a web page is there in that computer. So this particular information, the IP address or the domain name does not give. So to identify the web page's exact location, so we use the web browsers rely on Uniform Resource Locator. So if we have to identify a particular file, మనం ఒక ఫైల్ని ఎలా తీసుకుంటాం ఆర్ ఒక ఫైల్ని ఎలా ఐడెంటిఫై చేస్తాం, ఎలా ఒక ఫైల్ని ఎలా రిప్రజెంట్ చేస్తాం ఇన్ ద ఇంటర్నెట్ వరల్డ్ ఈజ్ బై యూజింగ్ దిస్ URLs. ఓకే, so URL is a 4-part addressing scheme that tells the web browser. So what the transfer protocol use the transporting the file, so used for transporting the file, and the domain name of the computer which that file resides, and the path of the folder or the directory on the computer which the file resides in, and the name of the file. So these are all the 4 different parts of URL. So the transfer protocol, so far we have seen one protocol or few protocols, right. So which is for the transferring the data between the computers or web server and web client in the internet world. What is it? That is HTTP protocol, that means hypertext transfer protocol, or HTTPS, so which is secured HTTP. And also we saw some other protocols like SMTP or FTP. So these are all the protocols. So in this URL we have to specify which protocol we are using for transporting the data. So there are a lot of protocols which will be used over the internet. So in that, what is the protocol that we are going to use for this particular request or in the URL. So we will specify that protocol here, and then the domain name of the computer in which the file resides. So we need to specify the computer name. So in which computer, so this is the protocol, and which computer, either the domain name or the IP address. If we give the IP address, it will directly go to that IP address. So it will go to the DNS, of course, but it will so it is very easy to identify, right. So we can give the domain name or the IP address. So we have to give the domain name also. Then path, so where is this file located? So we saw the protocol, how do we need to go and where do we need to go is there, and after going there, where exactly the file is present. So after going there, the path name of the folder, so the directory name we have to specify here, then the name of the file, so which file you want to locate. So again, protocol, domain name, path name, file. So directly we have the access to that file. So this particular file is available across the internet. So if you give this particular URL, it will be available across the internet, across the websites. So this will be the importance of the URL. Okay, and this is the structure of URL. So the protocol : /host/path/file name. So here the protocol means how. So below second line you can see how you want to connect, and host where you want to connect, and then path and file name what do you want to get. So how you want to go there is the protocol. The protocol can be HTTP, FTP, or any other protocol. Suppose mail, in place of protocol, if we say mail to :/ and the mail address, mail to : mail address, then it will open up a mail client where you want to send the mail. And if we give a HTTP, then it is a web request. If it is FTP, it is a file transfer protocol request. If it is SFTP, it is secured file transfer protocol request. So it is the way how you want to connect to another, how you want to connect, or how you want to retrieve the data, or how you want to send the request is the URL. And host name is what is the domain name. So most of the times we will say host, domain name, and IP address. Host and domain name are more or less same, but in place of host we can give IP address or domain name. Okay, and path of the file, path of the directory. So in which directory this particular file is existing, and then the file name. So in any computer we want to open we would like to open something, then so in Windows computers and all, it will be C:/ then documents. So all this, the structure will be like this. So in place of that we will say protocol : / host, path, and file name. So it is how we can represent a URL. Okay, this is the structure of the URL. So here is an example. So it will so here if you see the protocol, it is HTTP protocol, and the domain name is www.chicagosymphony.org, and path will be civic concerts and index.htm is the file name that we want to access. So, the index.html, as I said, it is the home page for any. So, it is the usually index.html will be the home page for most of the websites, right. So, in this particular path, so what is the URL here. So, http chicagosymphony.org civic concerts. So, for this particular URL, the home page will reside in index.htm. So, this will represent, and if there is another example https, another example below, if you see https docs.oracle.com java sce7 docs api java lang string.html. So, this is this represents, so if you see com is a top level domain name extension, under that Oracle, under that docs. So, this is a documentation related to Oracle which is commercial, and the path is Java to SE, and this is all the document. So, this is the path of the file called string.html. If we see what is present in this string.html, so we will try to open and see what is present in this string.html. Okay, right now we are not able to see what is present in string.html, but so if we so this is actually the structure. If we go for the same path and then string1.html, then it will say I do not know about this URL. It will say string1, because string1.html file is not present there, right. And so the types of URLs. So, this is the, we have seen the structure of URL. So, but there is a different structure for different URLs. So, there is absolute URL and relative URL. So, we will see both of them, right. So, absolute URL is a complete address of a resource on the web. The complete address comprises of protocol used, server name, path name and file name. So, relative URL is a partial address of a web page. Unlike absolute URL, the protocol and server part are omitted from relative URL. So, the absolute URL. So far whatever we have discussed about URLs is absolute URL, which means it will have a protocol used and server name and path name and file name. So, if we give the complete information, then it will be absolute URL. If we give some information, like if the protocol is omitted and the server part are omitted, then it will be relative URL. That means absolute URL is the one which we will put all the information together, but relative URL some information we are not putting. So, there is a specific there are specific advantages for absolute URL and specific advantages for relative URL. So, these are basically used when building the website. So, how you refer a particular website, or how you refer a particular web page while building the website. So, this actually will make a lot of difference in the efficiency of the website. So, we will see one by one. Absolute URL. So, this used to link the web pages on different websites, and changes when the server name or directory name changes. So, takes time to access, valid across the internet. So, used to link the web pages on different websites. Usually if you want to refer a particular different website from our website, then we will use the absolute URL, because we do not know where is that URL, where is the another website present. So, if it is present on the local machine, then we will represent in a different way. If it is a different machine, we will represent in a different way. So, that is so if it is a different website, then we use absolute URL, and changes when the server name or directory name changes. So, this absolute URL will change when the server name changes, or will change when the directory name changes. So, that means as we use the server name and directory name in the absolute URL, if the server name is changed, this absolute URL does not mean anything. And మనం ఎక్కడికి యాక్సెస్ చేస్తున్నామో తెలియదు. ఇంకా DNS సర్వర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్తే, as the server name is changed, it will not know whatever the server name that we are giving, because it is already changed and takes time to access. So, when we give absolute URL, it has to go to the internet DNS server and come back. So, it will, because we gave the one server name, it want to identify where that server is present and want to go there. So, that is why it will take some time to access, right, and valid across the internet. So, as we are presenting the absolute URL, you take that absolute URL and go anywhere in the internet. So, it will not be changed. So, you access it from India, you access it from the from within one network or a different network, does not matter, within this computer, that computer, does not matter. If you go anywhere in the internet, this absolute URL is perfectly valid. And relative URL. So, why is this relative URL used? So, it used to link the web pages within the same website. So, remains same even if we change the server name or directory name, and faster to access compared to the absolute URL, and valid only within the same website or within same directory, right. So, what this relative URL means is, we are omitting the protocol and the domain name and some path also sometimes, right. So, this is used to link the web pages within the same website. So, if you go to a different website, then this relative URL is not at all useful, I mean not at all valid. So, suppose there is a file within this same directory called hello.txt. So, if this hello.txt in this directory, if I say hello.txt, then it is valid. If I go outside of this directory hello.txt, hello.txt in a different directory is different. If it is not present there, it will not refer the same location. So, if we go outside, then we have to say the directory name and the file name. So, that is the difference between relative URL and absolute URL. And this remains same even if we change the server name or directory name. So, there is no server name at all in the relative URL. So, even if we change the server name, that does not matter, because, and also if we are referring the same directory, if we are referring the file under the same directory, then even the directory name also does not matter. And faster to access compared to absolute URL, because this absolute, when we use absolute URL, we are providing a domain name there. So, as we provide a domain name, it will take that domain name and go to the DNS server to identify which server or which computer it is. So, as we are not using the domain name here, there is no need to go to any DNS server. So, it is faster, it is within the computer. So, it will directly search the same path from that particular file, and if it finds the file, it will present. If it is not able to find the file, then it will not, it will say this file is not present, and valid only within the same website. So, if we go to a different website, then we are not, there is no information about the server in the relative URL. So, if there is no information about server, it is not possible to find out any particular, it is not possible to find out the particular file in the server or in the location, because there is no file present in that computer. Suppose computer A is there, B is there. So, from computer A, if we are referring computer B, then we will say computer B slash the path and the file name. So, if it is relative, it is only the path and file name. So, this path and file name, if we take to computer B and see, then it is not present, then the request will be failed. So, this is about the relative URL. So, for this about this absolute and relative URLs, we will see some live examples now. Okay. So, here just for let me increase the font so that everybody will be able to see, right. So, this is a HTML document. Hello, this is home page. So, this is the text I have given, and just forget about all the things that we do not understand. So, there is something called relative URL to index 1, and I gave /index1.html. So, in this particular directory, there are two files called index.html and index1.html. So, from index.html, if I have to refer index1.html, I directly referred dot refers to the same directory, and index.1.html is the one we need to find out, and this is an example for relative URL. So, relative to index1.html, index1.html is dot slash index1.html, and if we have to if we have to see the full path of index1.html, we have to say c slash users, all these things we have to give. So, this is what is the example of full or the absolute URL. So, this is, there is no protocol or the server information, but just for an example. So, this will be what is absolute URL. So, now I will open index.html and will try to navigate to index1.html. Okay. So, open Internet Explorer and I am just opening this. So, this is what is this, hello, this is home page, and relative URL, if we go, then this is index1.html, and absolute URL, if I go, then this is index1.html. So, this is what has happened. Now, what I am doing is I am creating a new folder and copy this index.html and place it in place it in new folder, and I open this and see what will happen. So, one second, I think it is not open, let me open it again. So, this is index.html of new folder. So, if I go to the relative URL, see, the index 1 is not present. That means we have not, so the path is changed. So, it is not able to identify the resource in the resource when the path itself is changed. So, imagine how we imagine if we go to a different website, it is not at all possible to locate this directory. And now I am going to use the absolute URL. So, if I use absolute URL, then we are able to find the file. So, as this is the okay. So, this is one example of relative URL and absolute URL. So, in the relative URL, if we change the path, if we change the server name or path, then it will be it will be very it will not be possible to refer the particular file. And if we in the absolute URL, even if we change the server name, we will be able to access the file, right. So, in this chapter we have seen how the DNS will be working and what is a URL, and in the next subsequent sessions we will be seeing about browsers. We will be seeing about browsers and then search engines and then social networking. So, next session will be mostly practice session. We will be showing how a browser work and what are the buttons that we are going to use, and how a browser will be how a browser saves its data, saves its own data. So, these things we will be seeing in the next session. Thank you.